Welcome to Friday's Health Promotion Live webinar. I'm really happy to have a good friend today, Lee Dukes, who's the president of Principal Wellness. Lee has nearly 30 years of wellness experience, most recently as Senior VP of Client Services for Wellness Solutions at Alair Medical Incorporated in Dallas. Prior to that, he held a number of leadership roles in other health and wellness companies, including Matrix Healthcare, Winning Habits, and Cooper Institute. He graduated from Mississippi College and holds an MBA from Temple University. And I don't think we've known each other for 30 years, but it's been quite a long time.
Yeah, it has been a while, and I've enjoyed every minute of it, Michaela.
Good answer, Lee. That wasn't even scripted. Well, I'm so glad you were able to join us here today. The floor is yours.
Okay, well, welcome everyone, and thank you, Michaela. We're going to talk about a subject today that's going to get more attention over the next few years than it has in the past, and that's how do you deliver an effective wellness program for small and mid-sized businesses. On the screen, you should be seeing a couple of learning objectives that we want to accomplish today. One is to recognize and establish the value of wellness programs for small to mid-sized employers. And I should probably also state, what is a small to mid-sized employer? It depends on who you ask. If you ask sometimes a large consulting group, mid-sized for them is anything under maybe 2,500 to 5,000. For focus of today's program, I'm going to describe small as under 100, for 100 to 1,000. Again, that's not a universal application of the definition, but for today's purposes, just to give us a point of reference. And then secondly, we want to identify resources for implementing and maintaining a successful wellness program. The higher level topics that we're going to cover today are talk about SMB market, the small to mid-sized business market, some of the challenges they face, the advantages, action steps, and some resources. Looking at small business across America, pretty impressive numbers when you think that companies with just a small employer, 5 to 99 employees, represent 2.1 million firms in America, or companies in America. The pyramid in the middle is the size of, or the number of the employees in a firm or in a workforce, and then the sizes to the right are the number of businesses that fall into that category. So in other words, there are about 9,000 companies in America that have 1,000 or more employees. There are 94,000 that have 100 to 999, 123,000, 50 to 99, and 2 million, 5 to 49 employees. Areas we do expect to see the small market to grow very quickly over the next few years. You'll see that, I won't read the slides to you, and you can have these afterwards for your own reference, but you see that there's a lot of growth coming. It's easier to start a small business than it is to start a large business, but it's also, the failure rates are higher. Looking at how small employers, and this is really getting down smaller, 2 to 49 employees, how do they spend their money on their employees today? The left column shows that about 70% of the companies pay part of their medical expenses. That's the top bar for their employees. 26% pay all of the medical expenses, and 4% the company doesn't pay any. Look to the right. This is the anticipation of where things are going to be in just a few years from now. In medical expenses, the company is going to pay part of 88%, but only 11% will expect to pay all of the medical expenses. That's compared to 26% today. How do small employers spend their money on their employees? About 8% spend on wages and salaries. You can see that insurance covers about 8%, and about 3.5% goes into savings. We're going to look at a few trends that are affecting how this market looks at themselves and how they're going to start looking at healthcare and at wellness in particular. Employers do see an additional burden in compliance with new regulations, and many are unsure what they're going to do in response to these new regulations. So some opportunities that exist, including tax incentives for small employers who offer coverage. The second bullet point toward the bottom, reform offers wellness incentives or grants for SMBs available in 2011. Unless you've heard something this week, and I checked just before this call, the funding still has not been approved. So while the laws are on the book to set up funding, the $100 million of $200 million of incentives for companies with 100 or fewer employees, not funded yet. Brokers are eager to prove value to their clients by offering ancillary products in addition to medical and wellness. And we're going to talk about that in a little more detail. While it may seem that, well, that's not my business, I don't care what brokers do, they've driven a lot of the spend decisions over the last many years. For those of you who aren't familiar with brokers, and how I'm using the term broker here, broker is an intermediary specially used by smaller employers to help them find what's the best benefit solution for them, and who are the vendors that are going to be the best fit. Smaller employers oftentimes don't have the HR or the compensation or benefits expertise that large employers do. Oftentimes they're family-owned businesses or privately held small businesses, and they just can't afford a very sophisticated and experienced HR department. So they turn to brokers in the community for help. These brokers made a pretty good living in the last few years by being paid on commission from the vendors that they bring to the relationship. And for some of these firms, as much as 80% of their revenue has come from medical commissions. So just hold that thought for a few moments. Let's look at the economy. All in all, we're getting more optimistic. Things are looking better, but small employers have not yet ventured out into the workforce to bring new employees on. They're still a bit skitterish of are we going to have a second round, a third round, a rebounder? So they're holding off hiring new employees until they absolutely have to. If you'll see the third bullet point here, only 2% of the small to mid-sized businesses had plans in March to hire new employees, less than in February. A third trend is that there's a lot of cost shifting going on to employees. So while the employer in the past may have paid for 80%, 90%, 100% of the health care coverage for their employees, now they're saying, we'll cover or 50% or something less. You're seeing a variety of approaches taken here. Some are holding steady for the employee coverage, but increasing the employee cost for dependent coverage. And employers are trying to find a way to keep their doors open and to shift expenses as much as they can without raising prices. An odd thing about what's going on in our economic world now is we're not seeing inflation that we would have normally expected to see at this stage of the financial or the economic cycle. So employers aren't able to raise prices for their products and still be competitive in the marketplace. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier about brokers. I'm using the term advisor and broker interchangeably here. For those of you who work with larger employers, you may not even think of the word broker, but think of a consultant, somebody from one of the Tier 1 consulting groups that comes in and gives advice, but they're oftentimes paid on a fee basis. Matter of fact, most of the time, there's a negotiated fee. Here's what the employer pays the consultant to do this. On the brokers, they haven't been charging for their consultation many times. They've made their money off of the commission from the products that they bring to their clients. So medical loss ratio, which is an important factor, or the impact on medical loss ratio is an important factor of healthcare reform. What the bill did is that if you're an insurer and you have an employer with fewer than 100 employees, at least 80% of all the fees that you collect have to go back to the care of your members. That other 20% is what you can use for marketing, for overhead, for administration, for research, all of the things that it takes to run a business. For those cases that have more than 100 employees, it's 85% has to go to the care of the members, 15% for these other expenses. Again, that includes profit, and it also includes broker commission. So let's say that a health plan was paying brokers a 5% commission. They're looking for ways to get that. The health plans are looking for ways to get that 5% back into their revenue stream. Now, I should also say that, well, why do they use brokers? Why don't small employers just go direct? I mean, isn't it sort of double dipping for these brokers to be consulting and getting paid for the clients they're recommending? No, because the the market in health plans has been so confusing for employers. It's hard for them to compare an apples to apples analysis with multiple health plans that they may have access to. Something that we're all anticipating is over the next few years that the number of health plans that offer coverage for smaller employees or smaller employers is going to dwindle. I was talking with somebody in a northeastern state, and they said that to a broker, and they said in essence, their small employers have three choices statewide that they can choose. Also, if healthcare reform stays as it is, and there's a pooling. There is a state-sponsored health plan pool that small employers can buy into. It's going to be like buying something online. So again, the brokers are trying to find ways to hang on to as much of this business and to shift their revenue source, and much of it's going to fee-based. Many of them are starting to charge for their services rather than giving it away and making their money on the commission. Let's go to the next slide. We know that technology is going to play a part. We've been monitoring across all industries, the banking industry, the insurance industry, healthcare industry, definitely a quicker move to technology. I won't dwell on that because that's sort of a global statement. Another trend is, and I don't know what's driving this, we've been looking for this, but there's a lot of interest in financial wellness. A lot of employers are saying, we understand that our employees have gone through a lot of stress, they're living with fewer spending dollars today than they had 2 years ago, and they're just experiencing that, and we feel like it's affecting their work productivity and their health. Now, there are some studies that show that yes, people who are at greater stress are more likely to incur higher health care costs. Nobody would argue that. But this financial wellness piece has sort of crept up in the last year and a half, and again, we can assume that it's largely driven by the impact of a weak economy. Here are some pain points that small to mid-sized businesses have expressed. Number one is rising cost. Number two, competition. And number three, employees. All right there sort of together, and you can see the other concerns on this page. One of the reasons that we see employers turning toward wellness, and we're seeing a lot of activity in the small employer market where we didn't in the past, is they're looking for ways not only to control or to better manage the increase in healthcare costs, but also to attract and retain top quality employees. They're having to do more with fewer employees, so they want their employees to be as productive as possible. Let me clarify one point that I said, and this is observational. It's a little early to say that that this is going to be proven out, but smaller employers, for many reasons, they didn't invest in wellness programs in the past. One of the reasons is their health plan gave them a wellness solution or gave them a wellness product. Now they're looking for more than that. They realized that was okay, but it wasn't necessarily the primary business of their health plan, and so not getting exactly what they needed to move the needle for their employee population. So here's some challenges that are being faced by the small employer as they're related to wellness. Limited internal resources, money. Now, sometimes that's a perceived issue because they think it's going to cost a lot of money to deliver wellness. In the industry, we've got to help these employers get over that barrier. People. They have fewer people to work with, and it's less likely that they're going to have somebody on their staff that can dedicate a lot of time to wellness. Time, every minute's precious. The smaller your workforce is, the more noticeable a few hours lost here and there are. So in their minds, we've got to help them get beyond the barrier that this is lost time. It's not. It's actually well invested time in your employees. Space. Usually don't have space for exercise classes or other things that we would think of that take space. But this last one is probably the one that's the most important. They have limited knowledge about wellness. They may have heard what a large employer does or read or been to a conference, and they heard all this great stuff that these employers are doing, but they just can't translate it down to their size group, and they don't know where to turn. Address that in just a moment. Not many wellness vendors or partners are willing to service the SMB market. Up until 2 or 3 years ago, many of the large players would not offer wellness products for employers with fewer than 5,000 employees, much less fewer than 50. It's many of those who are offering wellness solutions for smaller employers are local. So it's local hospitals, our local wellness companies, and many times they're doing a great job for those companies in their community. Oftentimes, though, they don't have the skill or the ability to take on what the volume in their market offers, or if an employer has sites outside of that local location, they can't service them because they're pretty much a hands-on local service model. But with the small groups, sometimes they're limited or no group wellness reporting, health risk data, or participation reports, especially associated with a health plan. Sometimes this is limited by the privacy of protection of privacy. Small employers may have 5 or 6 employees, and you start giving detailed, even aggregate data, you can sort of pick out who is at what risk in some areas. But most of the time, it's because of the effort and energy that it takes from a vendor's perspective to create and deliver and explain the reporting that is just not offered to the small employers. It's also difficult to establish financial impact. If you've got 5,000 employees in your workforce and you want to monitor over time their health risk data, their biometric data, their claims, pull them all together, you can see some trends. But with a small group, it's very difficult to do that, not only because of the limited resources to do that, but oftentimes, most of the times, this group's in a fully insured product, and it's sort of hard to measure it. There's also no significant research about small wellness programs. We're starting to see some good articles, some anecdotal information, but no major group has focused on measuring outcomes. As I mentioned earlier, the employer doesn't know where to turn, so oftentimes they turn to their broker. Unfortunately, this is so new for the brokers, they have little or no wellness experience. We have seen a very positive trend in the last year where some brokers have hired a wellness expert to come on. Sometimes those experts are very deep in their knowledge. Sometimes they are a family member or somebody who teaches a yoga class, and the broker doesn't know whether or not this person knows about total population health or risk interventions because, again, the broker doesn't know to ask those questions. We are going to see brokers get more sophisticated as they have to be more aggressive in this market. Brokers, and I alluded to this earlier, and I need a little more explanation on it, many brokers are starting to look to wellness as a revenue source. Those brokers in the past who had wellness services sometimes did so just as a service. If they broke even with it, they were pleased. Now they're starting to see we've got to make up revenue. We're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue because of the impact of medical loss ratio, which has driven down the fees that health plans are willing to pay to brokers. Where do we go? So much more focused on fee-based business in the future than they have been in the past. Now, those were some of the disadvantages for a small employer. Here are some strong advantages. You know right off the bat if management's supportive of the program. You can see them. They can be very visible and speak one-on-one with their employees about their commitment to the program. They can practice the healthy behaviors and even lead activities in which healthy behavior is practiced. Another advantage is it's a close-knit work group. You know, oftentimes one employee knows what the other employees' needs are. They know who the smokers are. They know who's obese. They know who sometimes even have health conditions because it's discussed openly and freely by the employees themselves. Because of this awareness, a coworker can be more helpful or sympathetic in supporting a coworker. Also, communications are delivered more efficiently. It's not very difficult to get 5 or 10 people together and talk, or even if you're just sending out a memo, you don't have to worry if it's getting out to the remote locations, to the small group out in the field. Peer support is linked to the first one, which is very important in changing the culture of the workforce. And then the culture itself can have a very strong impact, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Well, one of those examples is it's very easy for a small employer compared to a large one to change policies and to adjust the environment, what foods are served, flexible work hours. They can do things that, again, a large employer, more challenging. Also, informal leaders, just like the management team, are more readily known. They step up to the plate. People know who to listen to. And if you get those informal leaders on board early with the wellness efforts, they can have a strong impact on the success of your program. It can also cost less to achieve more. I was just in a meeting that looked at overhead cost and direct cost and allocated expenses. Smaller employers, just about everything is handled as a direct cost. So you can do a lot more with a lot less money sometimes with a smaller group. Also, the program impact is is known more quickly. Well, you don't have to wait for 2 years and 3 years out to see risk shift, because you can see that Bob, who runs the drill press, has lost a few pounds, and that Alice has stopped smoking, and that you're going to get a lot of good anecdotal information, and that's going to spread rapidly through the workforce. Another thing that's a little unique about this group is that their job oftentimes provides a greater sense of completedness. That means they can see what their product or service, how it began and how it went out the door, or how the service was delivered to the client. If you're in a large company, your product may be, or you're part of delivering a product or service, may be just a small cog in the big wheel, and you don't get that sense of you contributed to the bigger picture. Here, everybody works more closely as a team, oftentimes. This is a diagram that I use often to show what that process should look like, whether it's a 5-employee company or a 50,000-employee company. You've got to have a game plan. You've got to have a strategy. And small employers sometimes don't know where to turn to get that kind of information. I'm going to give you some links at the end of this presentation that you can go to and do some research. Also, the employer oftentimes needs help with what's the best kind of incentive. I need to be sensitive to what drives the right behavior without over-incenting to where I'm not getting return for that value of the incentive. Also, I don't want to do anything as an employer that may be illegal or may be pushing the edge or sending the wrong message to my employees. We've seen a lot of small employers who have gone out with what they thought was a very well-intentioned incentive plan and just make terrible mistakes. Also, communications needs to be well thought out. How do they communicate all aspects of the program, including the incentive and the employer expectations? How do they do that? There needs to be a game plan for doing that. On the left side of this slide, you'll see individual activities, and these are sometimes the first that appear in a wellness program for any size employer: preventive screening, health coaching, wellness assessment or health risk assessment, and seminars. Sort of easy to do, and the individuals can participate whether or not their colleagues do it. Oftentimes, the other workers won't even know if I'm doing this as an employee. On the other hand, there are organizational activities that need to be implemented to change and support the culture of the workforce. Those are things like challenges, where people keep track of things for a fixed period of time. You give a lot of emphasis, you communicate heavily about it, create a lot of interest and dialogue about it, so that you start noticing movement. You start seeing groups of people who are walking, or groups of people who are making different food choices and bringing different brown bag lunches. People who are talking about things that they didn't even talk about in the past that are related to their well-being. Campaigns are more of maybe the employee's not asked to actively participate, but they're educational campaigns about certain topics. Wellness committees. Seen a lot of progress in the last 10 years toward wellness committees, and wellness champions perhaps in a smaller workforce, and then local events. Don't try to recreate everything for your wellness program if you're leading it, whether you're a small or large employer. There are things going on in the community: Komen Foundation, Heart Walk, Mother's March of Dimes. A lot of things that you can do to pull into your wellness program and pull your wellness program into them. Across the bottom, we need to be measuring constantly the personal and population improvement, tracking what's going on, and adjusting the wellness strategy. For an employer, let's say it's somebody who owns a muffler shop or a bait shop or something like that, they really don't have the expertise to do this. So they need some place to turn. Again, many of them are looking to their brokers, and others are looking to some vendors and, again, some nonprofit groups that have good advice. So here's some action steps. I pulled these directly from a 2008 publication by Welcoa called Absolute Advantage. This is volume 7, number 2, that is noted down at the bottom. Won't read through these. You can see them. These are things that any company or any of any size can do. There may be a twist on some of these. For example, provide an opportunity for health screening. What they may do is strongly encourage their employees to go to their physician and to have their physical. Another good thing that came out of healthcare reform is for non-grandfathered health plans, preventive care has to be covered at 100%. That is, it's age and gender specific preventive care. The in-house library, perhaps it's access to online information rather than maintaining an in-house system of books and newsletters. Disseminate a quarterly health newsletter. Could be monthly, could be bi-monthly or something, but you get the idea. There's a lot of things that small employers can do. And here's some things in addition to that they should think about doing. Make the program inviting and fun. I've seen too many wellness programs that start off very serious. It's all about, we're going to improve your health because you're costing us too much. That doesn't really inspire too many employees to get engaged, but if they see their employees, their coworkers enjoying those activities, even those at high risk and are late adopters are going to be more likely to jump in and participate. Openly explain the purpose and the expectations of the program, and do that honestly and candidly, but give some thought to what you're really wanting to accomplish with your program. If your program is designed to control healthcare costs, another way of saying that is to improve the health status of our employees. Now, ultimately, it leads to healthcare cost. I have a slide I didn't use today, but I often use in presentations, and that is, it shows health risks that lead to health conditions that lead to health cost. And if you only focus on healthcare costs, you're not getting to the root cause of unhealthy behaviors. We sometimes tell employers, not seriously, but we tell them, if you want to control healthcare costs, just don't offer insurance. Now, we don't want any employers to do that, but we make that as a point that it's not, a wellness program is not going to, its focus is not going to be on the dollars, it's going to be focused on the health status of the population. Again, openly explain in candid terms, honest terms, well thought out terms, the purpose of the program and what its expectations are. Expectations are, a year from now, we want to see our population at lower risk than they are today. We want to see them feeling better. We want to see them engaged in the program. We want to see them recognizing that the program is delivered for their well-being and their benefit. Also, it's important to address any concerns about privacy protection. There are a lot of inaccurate information out there. Oh, they're going to use this bot to fire you because they found your blood pressure is high. They're going to raise your insurance rates. They're going to do this and do that. Clearly indicate the privacy limitations, that the employer is not going to see the protected health information. And then you've got to make sure that there are steps in place to hide and protect that protected information when it is collected. Let them know that it is not being looked at to raise their health care cost. Do create an identity for your program. Employees something they can attach to. Maybe it's as simple as Acme Wellness, name of company wellness program. Or you can get something that's cuter or something that better reflects your population. I've heard some great names over the years. Container Store had a great name for their wellness program, or has one. It's 3 equals 1. And all of their employees know that the company believes 3 good employees equals 1 great employee. Actually, I flipped it around. It's 1 equals 3. 1 great employee equals 3 good employees. So pick a name, because then you can communicate more succinctly with your employees and start creating some brand identity. Do listen to what your employees want, not only by doing a survey, but have a committee that listens and open the door for them to drop things in a suggestion box or to come by and talk with you. So they're going to have great ideas on how to improve and make the program even better. Understand the needs of your employees. If you don't have any smokers, don't worry about a smoking cessation program. That's an obvious one. But best as you can tell from your population, what do they want and what do they need? Offer a variety of activities throughout the year, but don't just make it a hodgepodge of things. Don't just say, oh, somebody's available to come speak on this topic, let's get them. Make sure that is a topic that's important to your employees, and make sure that it's timed right. Don't do a whole lot of things in January and nothing else the rest of the year. Keep your employees engaged throughout the year. Make it seasonal as you can. In winter months where it's difficult to do things outdoors, focus on things that you can do indoors. Focus on stress. Focus on medical consumerism, medical self-care. When the weather is better, focus on physical activity. And when fresh fruits and vegetables are more readily available, focus on a healthy diet. Capture risk data at the beginning and periodically throughout your program to measure impact. You need to know if the needle's moving. Just feeling good is not going to be good enough in the long run. So you want to do group comparisons, aggregate comparisons with your population as your program matures. And then do selectively invite local resources who can bring expertise. Maybe they can come in and help you talk about, is your program right? Maybe somebody from your broker or from your local hospital or from a local college. I did have selectively in here intentionally, because there are a lot of people who want to sell their programs. So they'll offer themselves as a wellness expert, but really what they're trying to do is sell products such as multivitamins or exercise equipment. Now, in contrast to that, if you have, say, a local fitness center or somebody who's willing to come in and talk to your employees and to give them discounts because they're employees of yours, that's a good use of time. So here are some resources I mentioned earlier I would share. Internally, think of the senior leader as a resource. Have them write articles or write letters or speak openly to your population in support. And then maximize the existing channels of communication that you do have. Do you have a bulletin board? Do you use table tents? Do you have email messages? Do you have group safety meetings or anything else where you could get groups of people together and communicate? Use all of those that are available to promote your wellness program and its activities. Leverage the knowledge and experience of your employees. You're going to have oftentimes employees who really live the lifestyle and they really believe in it, have experienced the benefits. Maybe it's somebody who's lost weight or somebody who stopped smoking. Leverage them to help their coworkers achieve the same thing. Of course, use good judgment about how they did it and what other influences their personality and their history may have in your population. Do create a supportive environment. Simple things you can do. Give quick and easy access to places where they could do stretching or exercise classes. Make healthy foods available. And even if you aren't doing that, say you don't have food service, post posters to share with your employees information or hand out newsletters or copy things off the internet that you find, and I'll give you some sites in a minute where you can go do that make it very obvious that your work site is trying to be a healthy environment. Supportive policies, things like if you find that it's very difficult for your workforce to get their annual physical, maybe you give them a half day off on their birthday to get their physical, or a half day off sometimes during the year, and they have to come back to you with proof that they had the physical, but they did it, and that's a good use of their time. Policies may also include rewards for participating in the wellness program with lower health care premiums or with wellness days or other things that you might want to offer. Some of the community resources, like I mentioned earlier, hospitals, colleges, health organizations, the local heart association, cancer society, diabetes association, even the home extension services, the county agents oftentimes have good information about wellness, state and county health departments, and state and local wellness councils. Good places to turn, and I'll give you some, I think starting the next slide, some websites you can go. Do promote community events that promote wellness, some that I mentioned earlier, Komen Foundation, Heart Walk, but oftentimes there are many other community events, local 5K runs or walks, things that people can do that can give them something to shoot for, give them something to express, a way to express their belief and support of well-being. And here are some of those resources. And Michael, if you can hear me, are they going to have access to hard copy of this information so that they can see these?
Oh, yeah. Actually, the slides are already available on Health Promotion Live, so they can go get them whenever they want.
Wonderful. So I won't even go through these in any great detail other than to just give you a highlight of what some of these have available. The Centers for Disease Control and Health Promotion at this specific link offers some great basic information about what should the strategy look like, what should be the elements of a wellness program, and how can you tell if it's working. The American Heart Association and American Cancer Society have some great materials that you can reproduce and share with your employees. This list of state agencies is actually a CDC site that has links directly to the different states and the resources that the states have. Of course, it would not have been practical to list all the states here. And then the Department of Health and Human Services have several sites. While this first one lists safety in it, it's a little bit of a misnomer. It's really focusing on employee wellness. So please go there and see what they have to offer. A little typo here. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Now, this was a site, by the way, the email that health continues around to the W for wellness. There's no space or gap there, and definitely no space between the W and the E. This is a site which isn't intended for public use. It's intended for federal employers to help them promote and develop their wellness programs. But I found some pretty good information here that you may enjoy. The Wellness Councils of America, representing several councils, several states of councils, and then another group, the National Network of Wellness Councils, which is sort of a similar organization to the Wellness Councils as far as an organization. And that is the last slide that I have. And Michael, do we have an open forum where people can ask questions?
We absolutely do. So if you have questions, type them into the chat box, and Lee, you can probably see them. And if you don't see them, then I will I'll read them to you.
I'm looking for what I have. Yeah, you're probably going to have to read them to me.
Okay. Well, yeah. Actually, on that page that you just jumped to, since you still have control of the screen, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see where your slides are currently living.
Okay.
So it makes it. There they are.
Thanks.
Yeah. So people can grab them right there. Let's see. Gosh, you burned through a ton of really great information. Let's see, questions. Darn it. What? I guess since you're the president of Principal Wellness, how is Principal? How are you working to address the needs of these small and medium-sized employers?
Well, and everyone, I did not ask her to ask that question, but I appreciate it.
I know.
Thank you. Trying to keep it as uncommercial as possible.
Yeah, and this is not sales. This is an honest question.
And it is. I appreciate it. Because Principal is a division of Principal Financial Group, small to mid-sized businesses is our bread and butter. We're the number one provider of 401k plans for small businesses. We're number 3 in the life insurance space for these businesses. So just on our specialty benefits side, which is our short-term disability, dental, and vision, we have 60,000 small employers who contract with our services there. So we have shifted our focus dramatically in the last year to build and to develop products for the small employers to complement our parent company. Our smallest employer now that we deliver wellness services to, which includes a portal, it includes handbooks, it includes print materials, is 6 employees. Our largest client is, and that's a company in North Carolina. Our largest client is 30,000 employees, so it's sort of all in between. But on the small employers, they're oftentimes just need a point in the right direction. So we've created manuals and handbooks and webinars and things for them to help them as an employer know in bite-sized pieces how to set up their program, how to get it going, and then to create the web experience so that they can do a health risk assessment, they can watch online seminars, they can track their challenges and other activities and earn points for doing so, and then turn those into their employer for incentive purposes. So it's one of the challenges in the industry as it relates to preventive screening that nobody I've seen has solved yet is on-site preventive screening for small groups. Hospitals oftentimes do that very well because they're local, but even at that point, some groups can be so small that it's cost prohibitive. We're using a lot of at-home kits. I think this year, or in the last 12 months, we've used at-home kits with about 25,000 people. With a kit sent to the individual, they stick their finger, draw their own blood sample, put it in a cassette, and send it straight into the lab. We're seeing a lot of traction there for just worked with one group, about 700 employees, but they were split in 29 locations across about 18 states. So the at-home kits was a good use was good to use with their employees.
Mm. Now, are there other? Here's a question: are there other? I guess one way of putting it would be who are Principal's competitors? Who else is going after this small and mid-sized business?
Not too many. I would want to point out WellSteps. Troy and Steve are doing a great job servicing, doing a lot of good service for their clients. And I have seen that they are doing things for smaller employers. I don't know the size of the population they go down to. I would say our competition is mostly health plans that are giving away wellness. As I mentioned earlier, employers are getting less satisfied with that because oftentimes it's just a website and some things employees can do on a website, and they can't measure or monitor to see if their population really is moving, and there's no strategy around it. There's no plan from month to month or how they communicate it. It's pretty much a website.
Sort of a one-size-fits-all kind of approach.
Yeah, and on the health plans, we're watching carefully with them because sometimes part of these wellness expenses may be considered overhead expenses, and so it cuts into that medical loss ratio that we're talking about. I know some health plans that were giving away screening services in the past are now charging for them, and that's going to kick into full gear later this year. Most of these health plans are going to change their broker commission if they haven't already by the end of this year, and that's when it all starts changing. Hospitals are great, though. If you got a local hospital that's doing wellness services, they can do screenings, maybe even do health coaching. That's a good resource.
Mm. Now, do you see hospitals getting into health coaching? Because I haven't seen that, although I also haven't been looking for it.
Yeah, I was using a very broad definition of health coaching. Health coaching is very labor intense, but what sometimes is being referred to as health coaching, it's not what we define health coaching, but sometimes they do, is they'll do a screening, a finger stick, and on the spot provide some direction and guidance and call that health coaching, but not multiple interventions. Another thing we did for the small employer, because this may be getting more technical than the group wants, but companies like ours typically have needed an eligibility file so that if we're servicing somebody, we have a unique identifier, a social security number, an employee ID number, so that we know we really are talking with that employee and we're capturing that information and putting it into a database. And that's a tool often used by health coaching services. For us, that was a big challenge because small employers sometimes can't maintain eligibility files. At least creating the first one's difficult enough, and keeping it up to date is even more difficult. So we have created for them a service where they can call in and talk to a coach at any time, unlimited calls. So it's not as programmed, but we do send them information and workbooks on how to get started and next steps, so they can call back in and talk to a coach. They initiate it. We aren't doing outbound on those. Like you, Michael, I do expect to see more on-site coaching, and I do think hospitals are going to get involved, watching with a lot of anticipation what's going to happen with accountable care organizations. And I think that's going to be a very fertile ground for on-site health coaches.
Yeah, it seems like a natural fit. More questions, you guys? But they may still be back there on those slides with all those good numbers. Let's see. Well, I guess I guess sort of a step back. I think it's almost as though certainly you and I, and probably most people here, are pretty darn knee-deep in wellness and have been for some time. My thinking is that the healthcare bill has made a big difference in awareness. But I think some of your slides showed that people were still sort of on the fence about how that's going to impact them. But it seems to me that there's just the whole concept of health promotion and wellness and stuff has really gotten a huge bump.
Yeah, especially in the small to mid-sized market, because employers never thought about that. So all the press has been helpful. There was an interesting, we have two people on Capitol Hill that monitor what's going on, and one of the things that came up earlier was there was some confusion on Capitol Hill about the difference between prevention and wellness, and the terms were being used interchangeably, and they defined clearly that prevention are things that your doctor or a healthcare provider can do for you. Wellness are things you do for yourself. So I never gave much thought to the difference between the two, but when it comes down to funding or what will be paid for and what won't, they drew a pretty solid line in the sand there. But I agree with you. There's a lot of shakeup that's happened so far, and a lot of things that's going to happen in the future, and almost all of it's positive for wellness.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting time to be where we are, and I'd like to see tomorrow like yesterday.
Yep, me too.
Yeah. So, well, I guess. Oh, what happened here?
I clicked something on the screen like I shouldn't have.
Okay. Oh, that's all right. That's all right. Don't touch the buttons.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I forgive you. So, okay. I think there it is. Okay. Well, Bill, you must surely know Bill McPeck. I think you probably, if you hadn't met him before, you met him at at Michael O'Donnell's conference earlier this year.
Oh.
And he just sent a thanks, great presentation message.
Thank
Always
you.
nice to see you, Bill, even if it is just virtually.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, any other comments, questions, thoughts, deep thoughts? I got nothing.
Nope.
Okay. Well, I think, let's see, did you provide your contact information somewhere? How would you like people to follow up with you?
Oh, the very last slide in the slide deck has my phone number and email address.
Okay. All right. Then they can access it that way.
Huh?
So, great. Well, I really appreciate your time and glad we were able to pin you down. You're not that easy to pin down. You move around really quick.
I have to.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate the time everybody invested in being on the call. Thank you. If you have suggestions and ideas or questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you.
Super. Take care, Lee. Everyone,
Okay.
have a great weekend. Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.